In September 2025, the global auto industry gathered in Munich, the symbolic heart of the European legacy car establishment. The most interesting voice on stage that week did not belong to Mercedes-Benz, BMW, or Ford. It was Stella Li, the executive vice president of BYD. Historically, shifts in the auto market move in slow waves. German brands challenged America over decades. Japanese and Korean brands spent years fighting for reliability and respect. BYD operates at a completely different rhythm, an aggressive, highly integrated expansion that is making the old giants extremely uncomfortable. Back in 2011, when a Bloomberg interviewer asked Elon Musk about BYD as a competitor, he actually laughed out loud. He asked the interviewer if they had even seen BYD's cars. To understand the massive scale of that miscalculation, you have to look at the humble origins of BYD's founder, Wang Chuanfu. He grew up in a poor rural farming village and lost both of his parents as a teenager. His single path upward was education. He studied chemistry and material science, eventually founding BYD in the mid-1990s to manufacture cheap, rechargeable batteries for early-era consumer mobile phones. BYD's trajectory represents a structural threat to the global mobility ecosystem, exported through an entirely new model of industrial speed. This infographic details BYD's early problem. In the 1990s, the battery market had a massive financial barrier to entry. Major manufacturers spent heavily to build full factory cleanrooms, driving capital expenditures up to $120 to $150 million per gigawatt hour. Wang Chuanfu realized he didn't need to isolate the entire factory floor. By redesigning the process to use smaller, controlled glass box workstations, workers handled the most sensitive chemical steps through sealed gloves. Looking at the data comparison at the bottom, this single practical adjustment dropped their capital expenditure by roughly 60 to 70%, allowing BYD to scale production rapidly while remaining incredibly lean. Disruptive innovation is often about redesigning a process so an impossibly expensive industry becomes accessible. By 2003, BYD was one of the largest rechargeable battery manufacturers in the world. Then, Wang shocked investors by acquiring a failing Chinese car company. He bought it entirely to learn the manufacturing process and acquire the necessary automotive licenses. Their early strategy was brutally practical. They copied and modified cheap derivative sedans to gain real-world automotive experience. The cars were mocked by critics, but they sold perfectly well to domestic consumers. Legendary investor Charlie Munger looked past those early models and saw a founder with rare industrial intelligence. Munger's conviction led Berkshire Hathaway to make a critical $230 million investment in BYD in 2008. With that backing, BYD moved to seize the entire stack, manufacturing batteries, electric motors, and microchips in-house, and commissioning their own cargo ships. Traditional automakers rely on vast, dispersed networks of third-party suppliers. In stable periods, that works. But during periods of rapid technological shift, vertical integration turns supply chain independence into a lethal competitive weapon. In startup language, there is a term known as the cockroach entrepreneur. This is a founder who ignores glamour, focuses on raw survival, and keeps finding cracks in the wall to move forward when capital dries up and markets collapse. When the pandemic hit in 2020, global auto production and global supply chains experienced a sudden, devastating freeze. This graphic maps out BYD's survival pivot. Within weeks, they retooled their manufacturing lines to produce over 50 million medical masks per day for governments and corporations globally. As detailed on the right side of the timeline, selling essential supplies generated critical cash flow. It kept them alive during the freeze, allowing them to reinvest that momentum directly into their electric vehicle division as the world reopened. Deep manufacturing capability provides absolute optionality. If you build systems and machines efficiently, you can redirect your capacity faster than your competitors when the primary road suddenly closes. Even with superior batteries and efficient manufacturing, BYD faced a strict psychological limitation. You cannot capture the entire market by selling a $10,000 economy car and a $150,000 luxury performance vehicle under the exact same brand name. This chart outlines BYD's solution. On the left is their foundational mainstream layer, the Dynasty and Ocean series. These vehicles target middle-class buyers who care about value, utility, and battery safety. To expand upward without diluting that value identity, they created separate divisions. Denza handles premium mobility, while Fengcheng Bao focuses on off-road vehicles. Sitting at the pinnacle is Yangwang, engineered for extreme performance. This layered house of brands architecture is critical. It allows the corporate machine to capture maximum global volume at the bottom line, without forcing one specific badge to carry the entire psychological burden of the luxury market. Look at how BYD handles their most important component, the Blade battery. They target the primary consumer fear around electric vehicles, battery fires, and make safety messaging a core pillar of their identity, directly highlighting their perfect stability in extreme nail penetration tests. Tesla, whose leadership openly mocked BYD's vehicles a decade earlier, eventually began purchasing these exact BYD batteries for use in their own cars. The legacy companies that dismissed them are now relying on their hardware. Critics correctly point out that Chinese EV makers benefit from state support and massive domestic subsidies. But subsidies alone do not automatically build complex, creatively compounded industrial machines. BYD earned their position by executing on multiple difficult fronts simultaneously. The playbook is right out in the open. Identify a true core technical capability, exercise ruthless cost discipline, own as much of your value chain as strategically possible, and construct a brand architecture that scales. In business, the most dangerous competitor is rarely the loudest or the largest player in the room. Often, it is the company you are laughing at today, quietly building the systems that will control your industry tomorrow.